evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So I can take this off for a second.
You're 6 feet away from everybody.
You just say it's an honor. It really is an honor to say a few words in celebration of Stephen's life. My name is Chris Perino. Matthew is my first cousin. Stephen was my cousin too. Words alone can't do Stephen justice. To do Stephen justice, I feel like we would need some kind of multimedia extravaganza. We need like a 12-piece band, dancers, costumes. I'm not sure what else. But I know that words just don't do it. And I was texting with Matthew over the weekend, and I was struggling to find the right words, the right thing to say. And the word that popped into my head was magnificent. Stephen was really magnificent in so many ways. He was a magnificent husband, caring, fun, engaging, strong, and as Matthew has said, nurturing. There was such mutual respect between them, such contentment. I have to say, it was an inspiration to witness it. And Stephen was a magnificent friend. We and everyone just loved being with him, and we loved being his friend. I remember the first time we were out to dinner with Stephen and Matthew as a couple. We were with my sister Joanne, my brother-in-law Charlie, my wife Christina. We were at a restaurant in Manhattan, and the night went on for hours and hours and hours, but it didn't feel that way. And poor Matthew and Stephen had to endure Christina's interrogation at that dinner. How did you meet? Who asked who out? Was it love at first sight? And all kinds of other questions that no adult should ask another adult at dinner. Stephen was so patient and so fun. He just, that night, he was as magnificent as he always was. And I remember smiling on the ride home from New York because of how happy Matt was. So by then, we were in love with Stephen too, and we would find excuses to be with him and with Matthew. We'd make plans to dine together at all these fancy restaurants in New York and New Jersey. Stephen would find these places I've never heard of, and it would be great. It'd be a small group of us. Sometimes my brothers and sisters would join, and we would go on these dining adventures together. But most of all, we would enjoy each other's company, and we would enjoy Stephen and Matthew together. And so then we would look for other ways to get time with Matthew and Stephen, and they would find themselves invited to all of our, annoying birthday parties and family events. We'd drag them to Summit all the way from Cliffside Park. And I know they probably dreaded it sometimes, but they'd always show up, and Stephen and Matthew would always light up the room. I remember it was maybe 2 Thanksgivings ago, my 2 adult sons, Max and Peter, who don't care about much, frankly, were fighting to get to this. They wanted to be in the seat next to Stephen at the Thanksgiving table. And if you know them, really, that really is something. But with Stephen, you could be yourself. He was really magnetic. And I remember the year we were vacationing in the Bahamas. It was the 4 of us. We were out by the pool, and I turned around, and to my joyful surprise, at the Atlantis, randomly, are Matthew and Stephen standing there. I remember, and as I was thinking about what I would say, I remember feeling like this elation, this true happiness to see my cousins at the Atlantis. You know, there's so many people you would see on vacation, you'd kind of turn your head and look the other way. It was just such a thrill to be with them there. And, you know, it was immediate fun. You know, they had their hats on, the Hawaiian shirts, 2 big frozen drinks with like umbrellas in them. They were both really so magnificent. And Stephen was a magnificent leader as well. He was a leader for marriage equality, and he was a leader in the workplace, and he was loved and respected by so many. In the end, Stephen and Matthew had a truly magnificent relationship. You could feel the love that they shared. They learned from each other, and they really, really deeply cared for one another. And we saw that in the last few months as Matthew cared for Stephen so selflessly. The undying, unconditional, magnificent love they shared is an example for all of us to aspire to. So Matt, for now, as I said to you the other day, you put one foot in front of the other, that's all you can do. But you know, and you remember, that Stephen is here with us. He'll always be with us. And that when you stumble, Stephen's memory, his love, and his magnificent strength will be there for you when you need it most.
Thank you.
God bless Stephen, Matthew, our families, and all of our friends who made it here tonight.
Thank you so much. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Our next speaker will be Ann Schenk.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen's cousin. My mom and his dad were siblings. So I just wanted to share a little window of the world of Stephen from the perspective of his cousin. We grew up far away from each other. I was raised in Ohio, and he was raised in North Carolina. But we had a lifelong connection, bookended and punctuated, strangely, by funerals. Stephen's mother had cancer and died shortly after Stephen was born. When this happened, which left his dad to mourn for his wife while caring for 5 kids, one of whom was an infant, my mom scooped me up at age 5 and took me down to North Carolina to help out. We stayed there for 3 months, I remember. I hadn't started kindergarten yet. I was just barely 5, and I was enchanted by Stephen. I desperately begged my mom to have another baby so that I could have a baby brother of my own, and I was firmly told that that was not going to happen. So I decided to pretend Stephen was my brother. And in fact, the next year I lied to my school teacher and told her I did have a brother, the little dishonest girl that I was. That got me in some big trouble. But we didn't see each other very often. The next time I remember seeing Stephen was, I think, 2 years later. He was 2, maybe 3 years old when our grandfather died. And we were, I remember being in a funeral home in North Carolina with an open casket, really much like where we are right now. And my memory at that point was little Stephen with his southern drawl looking at our grandfather in the casket and saying, "Why Pawpaw die?" Weird thing to remember, right? But I remember that. So really in the next decades, we actually didn't see each other that much. We grew up, we graduated, we went to college, we had our careers, we did all sorts of things adults do. And I just had kind of fleeting awareness of Stephen, mostly through updates from my mom. That's probably some of the years that you all became his friend. But then social media was invented, and my generous Lambeth cousins reached out to me and to my siblings on Facebook, and we kind of got to know each other all over again through that lens of social media as adults. So then when my mom died in 2011, Stephen and Matthew, along with his sister and other sister and her father, made the trip to Ohio for my mom's memorial. And even though we hadn't seen each other in years, I felt so connected to them because we've been keeping up to each other. It meant so much to have them come and pay tribute to my mom, who had mothered them so many years ago. And it was a kind of a full circle moment. And even though it was a sad occasion, we shared a lot of laughs and joy that weekend. And I could feel this amazing bond that we had as cousins. And I could feel the amazing bond between him and Matthew. And we fell right in love with you the minute we met you. Stephen took the initiative to keep our connection alive then after that, and he reached out to me when he and Matthew would be traveling to Provincetown. I live in Connecticut, and so over the past many years, whenever they were passing by and they had time and we had time, we'd stop and have dinner together. And as you can imagine, those were epic meals, full of warmth and laughter, amazing stories, family lore, world travels, religion, philosophy, delicious food, drink. I just remember every single one of those in detail, and I'm so grateful for those memories. Stephen turned every event into a party. In fact, this week I learned from my daughter Marie, my older daughter, that on those drives, when you were passing by Providence, where she lives, Stephen would text her.
Yes.
I was like, Stephen used to text you? And she's like, yeah, whenever he drove by the exit, he would text me. And so that's just like Stephen, that he would do something for his first cousin once removed to make her day, you know? So that really was amazing. So the last time I saw Stephen was in November of 2019 at his father's funeral in North Carolina. Here again, it was another full circle moment, returning to the same town, the same grave site where my grandfather had been buried back when I was 7 and Stephen was 2. Stephen and Matthew took me under their wing that day and drove me all around the town of Elon, North Carolina, while Stephen pointed out the sights and told me stories about his life growing up, things I didn't know. It was during that day that I learned that the glory of Stephen was not always appreciated by his peers, and that he had experienced bullying and abuse while he was growing up. I didn't know that. It makes me so sad to know that he had to face that. And it makes me all the more amazed that the light and the love that radiated from Stephen had passed through that gauntlet. And I love the fact, and I admire the fact, that the hate that had been directed for him didn't turn him into a bitter person, but he met that head on and became a joyful person. So in February of 21, when his sister contracted COVID and became seriously ill and passed away, Stephen and I messaged each other a lot during that time. And in one of those messages, Stephen said something to me. He said, "I love you very much, and I think of us much more as siblings than cousins." And that just meant the world to me. Here I am at age 57, I finally got my baby brother. So we were gonna meet up the weekend of March 3rd, and when you got, we're gonna go to Provincetown, and then that weekend, Stephen messaged me to say they had canceled their travel plans and he was ill and he ended up in the hospital. And I can't believe that just about 2 months later, I'm here to say goodbye. So, Matthew, you and Stephen are pure magic. Your love is legendary. I will always think of you as family, in fact, as my brother-in-law.
Thank you.
And I know we're kind of far away, but I'm with you in spirit every step of the way.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ann. Our next speaker will be Christopher Zarkowski.
crier, so forgive me. I want to start by offering my condolences to you guys, family, all the friends that are here, and share a couple of moments about our friend Steve. My name is Chris Sarkowski. I'm one of the member of Matt's Fordham family. Matt was a roommate through many years in college, but over the course of the last couple of years, he became a brother. So from the bottom of my heart, I am sorry for your loss. I don't think I, in the worst of nightmares, could have ever imagined being up here speaking about this loss. And such a loss of a great soul. Over the last couple of days, I started to gather my thoughts to think about what I was going to say about Steve. I found myself crying a lot. I found myself lost in sadness and sorrow, and questioning how all of this could actually be possible. But during those times as well, I found myself smiling and laughing a lot as well. There were memories that I can share about myself and Carrie and my wife, where we met Steve, and we found love in Matt and his new partner. It could be a friend of ours reflecting on a story that Steve shared with her recently and about how it meant and what it meant to her. Or it could have just been a simple act that Steve showed during the day that let me know that these little acts in life can set the tone for a day, a week, a month, and honestly for your life. So I want to share some of the thoughts with you tonight. I know, and I think we all know, Steve is a fiercely loyal man with a huge heart and a profound love for Matt. It was a gift that they both shared. I heard someone say before it was a great love. I call it a love that you see in movies. And how do I know that? First, because they made each other better. I remember before I met Steve, I noticed something changed in Matt. I think all the guys at Fordham noticed something. He stopped wearing white knee-high shin socks over his topsiders.
Sure.
Sorry, Matt, I had to go there.
He fixed a lot of that.
He did.
Yeah.
But seriously, Steve jumped right into Matt's life without missing a beat. Many of you guys might know, back at Fordham, we shared a meal every year. It was Fordham Thanksgiving. Matt kept the tradition going, and when Steve jumped into Matt's life, he made it even better. He took the time to make everybody a gift that you would take home and celebrate with your family. He took the time to make gifts for our families so they could have a Thanksgiving and remember Steve and Matt during that time. He didn't do it because he wanted the praise or accolades. He did it to make the night better, but he did it because he loved Matt, and he loves Matt. Another memory, and this is recent, or another thought I'd like to share. During Steve's fight and his illness, out of the clear blue, he picked up the phone to call a friend and share a very profound memory that reminded him of her, but also about how you can get through things. I won't get into all the details, but they talked about a hard moment in Steve's life and how the beauty of a blue cornflower helped him balance himself. For those of you who don't know, the blue cornflower remained one of Steve's favorites. When I got to his house recently, it was covered in blue cornflowers. Now the last moment I want to share came less than a week ago when Matt and I took Steve to dialysis. It was a long, hard day. But on the way, as we got ready, Steve had to look good. We found a scarf together. We found a jacket and the most appropriate hat. After the dialysis, he was exhausted, but he was still smiling. And when we got downstairs, he made one simple request of myself and Matt, and that was, while Matt was pulling the car around, he said, "Move me into the sun." I laughed and I said, "Are you cold? Feels good, right?" And Steve responded, "Chris, it feels great, but it's beautiful too. Look at it and feel it." Okay? After he passed recently, and through the tears of the beautiful photo and tribute Matt created, I found myself smiling and laughing a lot, because he taught me a lot. I wanted to share these stories with you, because they're how I will remember him, and I hope how you will remember him as well. He's a man who loves deeply and selflessly for the love of his family, his friends, and Matthew. He's a man who saw beauty even through the toughest times and in the smallest of flowers. And the one that I'll take with me, he's a man who takes the time to enjoy life and all it has to offer, even in the toughest of times. So thank you, Steve. I'll smell the flowers, I'll look at the sun, and we can all think of you. I love you, Matt.
I love you. Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Thank you, Christopher. Our next speaker will be Mary Thomason.
I love you, I'm so sorry. My remarks are much more brief than the ones that came before. My name is Mary Thomason. This Villanova Wildcat got adopted into the Fordham crew, so I'm very happy to be a part of this. And also, as whimsy goes, I'm a math teacher. My remarks are prepared on graph paper. Stephen would think that's adorable. So, to meet Stephen was like getting an instant lifelong friend. To hear I only knew him 17 years was shocking to me. He made you feel like you'd been friends with him forever. Months or even a year could go by between us without being able to see each other, but it really never mattered. You could just always pick up with Stephen, and it was wonderful. It's funny that Chris and I thought about the same thing. Stephen always did things to make everything just wonderful for us to experience. So I thought of the Fordham Thanksgiving gifts as well. And what he also did is he always went out of his way on Facebook to wish me a happy Mother's Day. I was like, oh my goodness, how wonderful is that? And Stephen, in memories on Mother's Day, this past Sunday, you gave me a greeting on Mother's Day. So I can't wait to keep hearing from you in the future. Stephen was so funny. At one of these Fordham Thanksgivings, I wore brown from head to toe. Brown sweater, brown pants, brown jewelry. And he said, you know, that's a really tough look to pull off. Not sure if that was really a compliment, but I think it sounded really kind. So that was nice. So in getting dressed today, this is one of my uniforms. I have it in many different colors. Black just didn't seem right for Stephen. Yellow, I almost wore.
Okay.
But then I was just like, brown. Or a little extra is what we want. Stephen, I'll miss you. And Matthew and family, so sweet.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Our next speaker will be Thomas Privateri.
I love you.
Hi, everybody. Just to riff for a quick second, it's so special because I see all these faces that Stephen has mentioned to me in the past, and it's wonderful to see you all here. And when I hear all of you speaking, there's so many things that click about this guy that we all got to share, which I think is just wonderful. And, you know, Stephen was my chosen family. And Matthew was my chosen family. And when you had to reflect on Stephen, you know, you think of one special moment, then another, then another, then another, and I could have written 10 pages. And, you know, we all get down to these adjectives about him. And I chose joy. And not only because of the joy that he brought us, but this man found joy in everything. Everything. You know, he would wrap packing material around his head and take a selfie. The man found joy in packing material. You know, I mean, truth be told, he put anything on his head. A jaunty cap, a wig, a bow, a unicorn horn, a pot. He just would find joy in things. A straw. He couldn't take a straw without making a mustache out of it. Or a saber tooth. And because he was OCD, that meant one of us lost a straw because he needed 2 straws. The orange. How many smiles with an orange in his mouth? He just found joy in the smallest things. We got to go through his Facebook page and reminiscing and laughing and crying, and I don't know if you all noticed or did that, but he has so many photo albums in there. And one of them is entitled Lips, Glorious Lips. And I don't know if you saw it, but it's 17 photos of Matthew and Stephen with red lips, and that's a photo album. And we were the lucky recipients of that joy, right?
Yes.
So lucky, so lucky. And it spread and it manifested into love and laughter, and his laugh. It was almost like a motor, because it would start with a and then if it really got going, his whole body would get into it, and he'd throw his head back, and then the motor would have to come down because it would end with a so sweet. And so many people have mentioned epic meals, even people that we've talked with tonight. And I want to tell one quick story. There was one Christmas Eve that the 4 of us went out, and Stephen was concerned because Matthew had been spoiling him with the Italian 7 fishes for so many years, and we chose a steakhouse, and he said, well, what about my 7 fishes? What are we going to do with 7 fishes? So we get to the restaurant, and we're at a table that 4 people would sit at. And Stephen's going, well, Matthew, this is a fish. And Matthew, this is fish. And this is fish. And, you know, we ordered, and the manager came over. And he said, gentlemen, I'm sorry, but you've ordered so much food that we have to move you to a larger table. Now, I used to tell this story and be like, I'm so embarrassed I had to get up and move to a 6-top from a 4-top on a packed restaurant on Christmas Eve. But when you reflect on it now, it's just because he just wanted to try everything.
Yes.
And he was so happy to try everything. They say that the brightest stars sometimes go out the quickest. But we can never say that he didn't live in his 52 years. He lived every second.
Every second.
And we're the luckiest people to have been a part of that. So we'll miss you, my friend. But we know you're with us, okay?
Is there anybody here who would like to come forward and share some stories or memories? Thank you.
My name is Frank Elcade, and many of you probably don't know me. I met Steve very shortly after he started working at JLR, and you know, we both put up our professional poker faces, but yeah, I had that feeling. Like, I think we both did that. You know, behind that facade, there was a whole lot more. And sure enough, I mean, we were both silly. I mean, I could hear his laugh from, you know, the other end of the building and vice versa. And, you know, we'd go to each other's desks and, you know, interrupt everybody who was working around us because we couldn't have a quiet conversation. And we certainly couldn't do it without laughing our butts off. In 21 years with JLR, I've turned in a lot. I turned in a lot of expense reports. A lot of them for a lot of money. Jen, HR. It's in the past. But it was never an issue. Never an issue, except for one time. Stephen and I were in Vegas, and as has been said before, you know, he loved to eat, and so did I. And when I met him, you know, my palette had maybe 5, 7 different colors on it. You know, after traveling extensively with Stephen for work, all over the place, my palette was full because he did like to just explore adventure. I mean, at night he's like, "How about sushi?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I like sushi." So, and I always let him pick because, you know, I didn't know what to order. He taught me how to eat tapas. That night, I mean, we ordered so much food, there wasn't any room on the table for all these little plates, but everything was delicious. Well, the sushi night, we ordered 2 platters. You know, who cares about what the price was, right? A bottle of wine, then another one. When the food came out, it was like artwork. And we ate every last piece of it. And we had a fantastic time laughing. I mean, you know, I often get told, "Settle down, Frank. You know, you're having too much fun. You know, you guys are laughing too loud. You disrupt the tables around you." But, you know, I guess we didn't really care that much because we were having a great time. And when I turned in that expense report, it was the first time in 21 years that I got called to the principal's office. "Frank, we're gonna let this one go, but you really need to watch it going forward because you know, company's not doing great, and you guys obviously had a really good time." You know, growing up, it was family. It was all family for me, and my friends were my family. So I didn't really know what it was like to have a friend that wasn't your family. I could probably count on one hand, not even, how many friends I've had that haven't been family. But Steve was one of them. He's probably the best friend. I mean, I didn't like work near the end, but going to work and seeing him and how he would come over to my desk with his, and show off his shoes, like, you know, look at how good his shoes are. You wore some really splashy shirt, and I was even gonna wear, the socks. My wife ordered me a shirt the other day from Macy's, and, with floral pattern, which is, I started out plain, blue, gray, black, no pattern, nothing. But Stephen, again, like with the food, the same thing with the clothes. And I almost wore that shirt tonight. I just couldn't get matching pants. Because that shirt's definitely like way outside my comfort zone. But Steve, he had that way of just, like, he was just so infectious. And I love Steve, I always will. I'll never forget him, and always cherish the moments we had. And I'm going to carry forward what Steve said. What Steve showed me, the example that he set. He treated everybody with kindness, love. He saw the best in people. Even people who were really hard to find the best in. Guys, I'm really sorry for your loss. I can't imagine. Can't imagine. Well, that's it, man. Steve, I'll never forget your laugh, my man. Thank you, folks. Thank you. Where am I going?
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Reka Chedlavada Gibbons. I'm telling you that for something later. I had the pleasure of working with Stephen at Jaguar Land Rover as well. And immediately we became besties. We bonded over so many things. Food is one thing, Frank. The other thing was his unimitable fashion sense. He would come in every day. If the shoes were one thing, we'd actually have shoe-off competitions. And then there were the ties, there was his impeccable sense of pattern and color, and the way he put everything together. I mean, he dressed like a count or earl, and I couldn't wait every day to see exactly what he'd come up with. I remember the tie pins, the cufflinks, and the matching wedding ring sets that he had for almost every separate outfit.
Yes.
And he would proudly come.
That's his.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
We're wearing a matching rings today.
I love it, I love it. The thing though that I'm going to miss most about Stephen is his love and passion for life. He chose to have a massive, beautiful, robust life filled with friends, filled with a partner and a lover and a husband who matched him one-on-one for commitment and joy and love. He chose to have an amazing career. He chose to live every single moment. I don't think I'm misstating this when I say I don't think there's a single thing he regrets not doing. And that says so much. And for that, I feel a little bit of joy and not so much heartache, because I don't think he would regret a single moment of life. And I think we should celebrate every moment, knowing what he did. I'm jealous of heaven right now, that he is in our hearts always, and he is indelibly there. And I think of you, your family. Matthew, please know, a text, a chat away for anything you need. And if you let me do something really quickly, as we worked at Jaguar Land Rover, one of our co-workers who cannot be here, every time somebody would leave Jaguar Land Rover, Marianne would actually do a little tribute. And so Marianne is offering this tribute when she cannot be here today. So long, sweet Stephen. First of all, please forgive me that your leaving poem doesn't rhyme, which it usually does, or have a soundtrack like Last Dance or Piano Man. It was just too overwhelming to force this into the construct. I knew Stephen was special from the day I met him. He was bright, articulate, witty, charming, very easy to talk to. I will be forever grateful our paths crossed and I got to experience his fabulous zest for life and generosity of spirit. Every day would bring a new reality, bad jokes that I absolutely loved. His wooden bow tie was a prop for a day's worth of setups. Yes. If I needed a restaurant suggestion, a place of interest, Steve was the go-to guy. We went to see Sting and Shaggy together on the pier in New York City a few years ago and had an awesome time. I think it was Steven who came up with Reka Chudlavadga's nickname, that's me, Reka Chugga Lotta Vodka. It was a long time ago. If I was stressed at work or stuff was going on at home and needed to be silly, he was the best silly partner. His favorite person of all time was his love, Matthew. Their love for each other is an inspiration to many in the lesson of unconditional marriage bliss. He showed off proudly his new place they got at the Cape. He would talk comfortably with anybody. He was a gift wrapper extraordinaire and always willing to help a friend. I will miss that burst of laughter coming from me the next cubicle over or throwing up a balled up post note to each other's head. I have missed the fact that he erroneously thought the Stones were so much better than the Beatles. What a silly guy. I have missed all these things while we were in lockdown and was looking forward to those laughs again. And now that won't happen. I am so sad his beautiful life was cut short, but I know the universe gave him to us to learn from, and now we can pay it forward. May his memory remind us to celebrate life, be grateful for every day, and to love one another. Rest in peace, my friend. Godspeed.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. These are all true. Hi, my name is Martin Everall, and I've known Steve about 17, 18 years. And that's what I want to talk about, is about meeting. I'm a couple of years older than Steve, just turned 58. And coming out in the 80s was a challenge. It was a tough time. And for me, I never found the community in the gay community that supposedly gay community should have. So I buried myself in theater and work, and I certainly got out and I met people, but I didn't really have a gay circle. And then in the early noughts, I discovered the bears. I may not look like a bear, but inside here, it's pretty bearish. But I still struggled because a lot of people's type is their type. And I remember being at an event in Chicago, I believe it was 2005, and I was like, oh, that's that big blocky guy from New York. He looks really scary, but 4 Cape Cods in, I think, I finally said, aren't you the guy from New York? Which wasn't a very clever opening line, but it's what I said. And that's when I discovered there are such things in the world as the living embodiments of teddy bears. Because that's what Steve really was. And if you saw him in a crowd, you're like, ooh, that guy would break me rather than say hello to me. And then you discovered, no, that's why I still have the teddy bear I was given when I was 6 months old, because teddy bears are special. And he was the human teddy bear. And we used to hang out in P-Town all the time, and every now and then he'd be holding court in our favorite local watering hole downtown in the village, which is Ties, and Matt and I would sit in the corner going, oh, there's Steve holding court again. Which, very true. And I also have to laugh at the line about the socks, because I would come out, I rarely wear shorts, but Provincetown requires shorts, and I come out like, Steve's like, your socks are all pulled up. I'm like, I'm English, we pull our socks up. What can I say? The other thing that was really special, I perform, and getting people to come see you do a show when you're not like a big Broadway star is sometimes a challenge. And Matt and Stephen came multiple times to see me perform, and they even snuck a couple of photographs, which you really shouldn't have done, and I'm so glad that you did. Thank you for coming and seeing me in musty Gilbert and Sullivan operettas doing my patter baritone thing. And that I'm here doing this is just beyond surreal. That was such a life force that it was snuff-outable, just seems hard to grasp somehow. And then finally, I just want to say, I've never done well in relationship, and that's fine, that's my life. But man, if I could have for 1 month what you guys had, I could die a happy man, because every time I would see you, I was just like, to be that in love, I'm still very jealous of it in a loving way. It just was such an extraordinary thing to see. And so obviously genuine on both sides, and I just adore you and stay in touch. Anytime you just need someone to get you out of things, I'm here for you, as I know everyone in this room is. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bill.
I forgot to print it, so I have to use my phone and my glasses. So, what's really caught us was that walking around here and meeting so many people. Can you guys hear me? Okay. And hearing the same things over and over again, like how much we all loved him so much, and food and socks and clothing and shirts, and we're hearing all of these things, and my husband Rick and I we're sharing other things as well. How many of you have gotten the hello? And if you didn't, I'm so sorry, because it's probably this one of the most special moments of your life. And I was thinking, as I was putting thoughts together, was the first time that we met, and we were saying to Matthew earlier, we had seen each other several times, we hadn't really met, and then we were at the dugout in the village, and we looked at each other, and then Stephen said, "I'm Stephen, this is Matthew." And it was one of those bubbly sort of, and that was his voice. It's sort of like an ocean. It sort of just washed over you, and you were happy to hear it. Like what a leprechaun would sound like without a brogue. That was Stephen. And so I was thinking of different things, and what I wanted to say was, we've been talking about who he was, but I wanted to say some things about what he was. And I'll try to get through this. Stephen was joy and positivity and vibrancy. Stephen was color. You've seen the shirts, so you too know. When you talk about people who brighten a room when they enter, Stephen did that, but in the most colorful way, whether it was through a smile that radiated from his eyes or through that contagious laugh. Stephen was present in the moment. And you always felt as if he treasured those moments, as if everything else slipped away but that moment with you. Because that was how he made you feel. The last time Stephen and I spoke, he was in the hospital, and I had called him while I was at work. And I said, if I got a break, I'm going to call him, and I did. And then he's like, well, I have to go right now, but call me back. What time do you get out? I said, 2 o'clock. And he goes, call me back. So on the way home, I stopped off at the store, and I needed to pick something up. So now it's almost 2:30 by the time I'm putting the key in the lock, and I get a text, are you okay? Because I said 2 o'clock, and I thought, that's Stephen. He's checking on me, right? He never missed an opportunity to enjoy life, to grab it, hold it, and love everything about it. And when you were with him, he didn't tell you he was happy to see you. He didn't tell you he enjoyed your company. He he showed you. He showed you with that joy, and I'm pretty sure it was trademarked, but that Stephen Lambeth hug. I think it was trademarked. If he loved you, you knew it. And when he expressed his feelings, it was with three things, and these are the three words I think of with Stephen. Genuine, honesty, and truth. They were the three things that I think about with Stephen. Stephen sought out the funny, the good, the ridiculous, and the charming in the world, and he inspired us to laugh at it with him. That was what Stephen was, and he encouraged the same in everyone. This is why we were all so completely drawn to him. Magnetic, we've heard that word several times tonight. He brought light and joy to the world, but it wasn't like Stephen created joy. It felt like it was his job to deliver it. And that was his task, and that was his job, and he did it 100%. We were all very lucky enough to be near him. So I think what we need to do and remember is that he delivered it to us, and we learned from the best, and we have to keep it going. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to come forward? Okay, we'll invite Matthew at this time.
Honey, I'm going to drive for a second, okay? It's funny too. I told the story before, and it's the truth. We never fought. We were never angry with each other. The worst thing I would do is leave the sprayer on in the sink when he flipped it on. That would piss him off. The worst thing he would do is leave his shoes in the dining room. Piss me off. And both of them were so funny that they always ended in laughter anyway. But actually, the times we did fight was in the car, because he totally despised the way I drive. I drive like a grandfather, and he hates that. That just came up. You should know this isn't going to go well. It's going to be short. I only have two little things I want to say. I poured my heart out into the Facebook posts. If you want to know how I feel about Stephen, you can read those. And I've read all of your comments. I have loved all of your comments, and the consistency of those messages were breathtaking. And I just want to share a couple of stories. You know, we talk about Steve's magnificence. We talk about my glorious Stephen, and how his eyes have only ever seen the wonder in the world. And you know, sometimes things aren't right. He had a job one time. It wasn't for him. He wound up leaving, and you know, Stephen and I have a yin and yang sort of energy. We were perfect for each other, and I would be very upset if I found a job and that job didn't work out and I was upset. I would be upset that that job came to an end. And I was expecting that from Stephen when he came home. He called me when he was coming home from Manhattan. He was working at a law firm at the time. and told me, and I was ready for, I was ready for, oh, this is terrible, get ice cream. I was waiting for all the things that I would have done. He walked in the door and said, do you have a passport? And I'm like, no, not a current one, no. He's like, do you want to go to Germany? I'm like, no. God, who wants to go to Germany? No, of course not. And I think he's going to be upset, and the first thing he does is he comes home and he buys plane tickets, and he's like, well, I'll get a passport, shut up, pack your bags, follow me. And the reality is I would rather be anywhere in the world with him than anywhere in the world without him. So I went. He took me everywhere. There were a million places. Spain, France, Mardi Gras in New Orleans, Italy. Took him to my hometown where I spent summers growing up on the Adriatic coast of Italy. And he loved it. But Germany was a little special. Germany was his obviously English was his primary language, but if he was most fluent in anything, it was German. And I tell people Stephen was magical because he was. We were all meant to be magical, and Stephen was. And he was most fluent in German, and when we went to Germany, the first thing he did was stopped in some store, bought his Christopher Plummer jacket from Sound of Music, and spoke with a flawless Southern German accent. Horrifying when he talks in his sleep in German. Horrifying. But spoke with a flawless German accent, and we walk into a tent at Mardi Gras. No, I'm sorry. Mardi Gras was one thing. We walk into a tent at Oktoberfest, and Stephen spent a great deal of time all over the world. He was a language teacher. Ultimately, he spoke 7 different languages. He taught people how to teach languages in their native tongue in other countries in languages that he did not speak until 5 days later, and then he did. That was true in Barcelona. He never spoke Spanish, but we were in Barcelona for a week. A week later, telling the cab drivers where to go, ordering the food from the menu. That's Stephen. And Germany was special, and so we walk into the tent in Oktoberfest, and there's this thing. This thing that I did not know of, and some of you probably know of, but there's this thing. In Germany, you are allowed to be precisely 15 minutes late. Precisely. If you are 16 minutes late, it is a disgrace. Okay, so my entire life has been a disgrace. I have never been on time for anything. But this is one of those little cultural things that you don't know. So Stephen walks in. There are, if you've ever seen the tents in Oktoberfest, they're just these gigantic picnic tables, super long, and they're always packed, and they're reserved years in advance. And he grabbed one of the, stereotypically overburdened with beer classes, dressed in the drindle waitresses, and looked at these 2 tables that had signs on them for Lufthansa. And on both those signs, the reservations were 20 minutes late. So he says in his perfect German, "Look at this disgrace." And she looked at him and said, "You are absolutely right." Not that I understood any of this. None of this happened in English. "You are absolutely right. Those 2 tables are yours." And we had 2 gigantic tables at Oktoberfest, which Stephen promptly filled with brand new friends, friends that still email, and that was part of his magic. That is the kind of magic that Stephen could perform. And I watched him do it everywhere. It's who he was. Never met a stranger. That's a phrase a friend of ours. I didn't know you were here. He took that from you, Barney. Never met a stranger. He loved you. That was Barney's philosophy, and it was very true of Stephen. And I just have one more little tidbit. There's a movie. It didn't. I don't know that it resonated very well. I don't know if anybody's really familiar with it. If you are, watch it. It's a great movie. It's called About Time. Has anybody seen it? About Time? Look it up. Netflix it. The premise of the movie is that this man, he's just born with this genetic ability to move backwards and forwards in time. Not like the time traveler's wife, but we're close, right? And that was it. He just had the ability to move forward and backward through time. And it's a lovely movie. It's a heartstringing movie. And the part of it that maybe the world missed and that I saw was that at some point the lead goes through his day like a day. You get in the car, you have your head down, you get your coffee, you go to work, you come back, you get home, you have contact with 40 or 50 people in a day, and then you go to bed. And the part of the movie that is so perfect for my glorious Stephen is that the lead would do that, right? He'd just have his day, and then go back one day in time. And instead of just plowing through your day, he would make eye contact with every single person that occurred in that day. He would look up from a cup of coffee. He would lift the head of the person that walked by. He would greet everyone that greeted him. And he would live every day twice for that gorgeous, that heavenly connection with humanity. And that's what Stephen did every single day. Every single day. Complete opposite of me. Keep my head down all the time. I hate people. I don't engage. These were the things that he brought to my life. And that is how he lived his. He didn't need a second chance. He didn't go forward and backward through time. He did it right the first time. And that's my love. My glorious love. Thank you.
Again, let me express my condolences to the family, all the friends here present today. This does conclude the services for this evening. On behalf of the family, I'd like to express their thanks and appreciation to everybody here present for your stories that you shared and all the floral offerings made. At this time, I will ask to start on this side of the room. I'm going to ask that you come forward, pay your final respects, and then exit the chapel so that the immediate family can have some time alone for themselves. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. Again, and thank you to all those who came up to share their stories.